Hey, Carrie.
Hey, Jake.
You're sitting across the table from me.
I most certainly am. I didn't have to call you. You didn't have to call me. There's no calling involved. You're in my house.
Amazing.
I love it.
You haven't killed me yet?
Not yet. The night is still young, my friend.
That's true. That's true. I still have another day before I go home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When you go home.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. There were air quotes there.
Yeah.
FYI.
So we're going to be talking about That Thing We Call Heart.
By Sheba Karim.
Mm-hmm.
It is a really quick read.
Yes.
So I would recommend pausing, reading. It'll take you about 10 minutes, and then coming back.
Yeah.
Maybe more like 2 hours, but it's a really quick read.
Yeah. And we're going to have spoilers for it.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you want to get ahead of the game for next episode, we're going to talk about Anne of Green Gables.
We sure are. By Lucy Maud Montgomery.
Yes. And so I've never read that for some reason, so I'm looking forward to that.
Because you weren't a young girl?
Yes. And that, well, yeah, probably.
And I was trying to think of this the other day, and so Anne of Green Gables was one of those books that was really, and you can edit this out later if you choose, but I was trying to think of something that was as sort of part of, I don't know, it shaped a lot of lives. I think it was a series that sort of, even though it was, an old book, when my peers and I were growing up, I think a lot of girls and a lot of women grew up reading this series that sort of taught us a lot about female friendship and a lot about, how to woman. And I don't think that there was a series like that for young boys or any books really like that for young boys. And I was trying to think of something. So I have been thinking about Anne of Green Gables a lot recently, partially because there's that mini series that's out, and partially because it's Anne of Green Gables and it's freaking good.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
if anyone can think of a male equivalent, let me know.
Yeah, that would be interesting. So I guess we'll get to talking about That Thing We Call Heart.
Oh, I've got things to say.
Yeah, me too. One of the things about this book is that it kind of, like, what intrigued us about it was the description on Goodreads.
It was a fantastic description.
So actually, why don't I bring that up? Shabnam Qureshi is a funny, imaginative Pakistani-American teen attending a Tony private school in suburban New Jersey. When her feisty best friend, Farah, starts wearing the headscarf without even consulting her, it begins to unravel their friendship. After hooking up with the most racist boy in school and telling a huge lie about a tragedy that happened to her family during the partition of India in 1947, Shabnam is ready for high school to end. She faces a summer of boredom and regret, but she has a plan. Get through the summer, get to college, don't look back, begin anew. And then it continues on.
And so, yeah, there's something really intriguing. Like, what would make this girl hook up with the most racist boy in school? And where does it go from there?
Right. And that just happens in the first chapter.
It's the first chapter, and really nothing happens with that again.
Yeah.
And I mean, I thought that there would be something, and it ended up being a complete non-event, other than the fact that she made out with this guy, which was sort of a random thing that happened because it was...
it was literally random.
It was literally random. All the girls had to put their cell phones in a basket, and then all the boys picked a cell phone. It was something random like that. And and the most racist boy in school, who was also the most popular boy in school,
and the most handsome boy in school,
et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, took her to the hot tub and they made out. They had champagne, and then the 10 minutes was over, and he's like, bye,
so long.
And that was that. And so I thought, in the description, there was going to be like some sort of fallout with that, whether, internal or with her friend. And that didn't happen. So I was like, where is this book going to go?
Right. Well, I think that, I mean, the thing, I feel like the purpose was supposed to be that it was just an added secret that these two friends had that they weren't talking to each other about. One of many. This guy had also made fun of her friend Farah, who wears the headscarf. I think making some kind of joke about her being a terrorist or something.
Yeah, he kept saying, like, do you have a bomb in your bag or something? And she was really upset. And Shabnam,
laughed.
She laughed, I think, because she felt that that's what you're supposed to do when a stupid person makes a stupid joke. That was her reasoning for it. But I think, also she had a lot of mixed feelings about Farah wearing hijab in the first place. Which we get into later, I guess.
Yeah. I feel like we're going to have some criticisms of this book.
I have some criticisms and I have some, really positive things to say about this book. I think, reading about a culture that I'm not a part of, written by someone who's in that culture, is really refreshing. I was saying earlier today that a lot of times, it's like a white girl writing a book about another white girl who has, a minority friend. And often the minority friends the only thing about them is that they're a minority. But, Shabnam and Farah are both, they're both whole solid characters with a lot of quirks and paradoxes and really interesting things about them. So that was really nice to read. And, the fact that I'm not reading books by white men this year, this was the exact opposite of that. And it was kind of nice.
Yeah.
But there were still some problems with it.
Right. Some other things. Yeah. So I agree. I like that about the book. I also, you mentioned a little while ago that this is a book where the parents are actually there for a change and are important characters, and I feel like have really distinct personalities.
And also the whole parental child relationship it's solid. It's not superficial. It's interesting. It's nuanced.
I kind of loved her relationship with her dad.
Oh God, yeah. Her dad is this super nerdy mathematician who also loves poetry.
But is also a total, bad at socialization.
Yeah, he's an awkward guy. He's, he doesn't know how to talk to his wife at all. When their great uncle, when the great uncle comes, he just sits there with the paper in front of his face. He doesn't interact, but yet has this intense love and understanding of poetry and translates it.
Yeah, and I think so. The point where I just kind of fell in love with him is I forget who. Oh, the boy that she falls in love with, Aunt Marianne. She makes a reference to a poem, which I wrote down someplace. Meditation at Lagunitas by Robert Hass, which ends Blackberry, Blackberry, Blackberry. And Shabnam looks it up online and thinks it's an interesting poem. She isn't sure she quite gets it. And so she just tells her dad, hey, well, I came across this poem. I know you like poetry. Maybe you're interested in it. And then a couple chapters later, he writes her this long letter about what he thought the poem was about and, and how it's relevant. And then this other poem that he likes, he translates from Urdu for her. And it's just this beautiful thing. And
it's this 3-page on legal so it's long and she said he's got this tiny, precise handwriting. So this must have taken him forever, but it's also, I don't know, it's a really sweet moment for where they're starting to connect, maybe not as parent and child, but as like peers.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Which, again, you don't see in YA. You don't see that, really in a lot of books. You don't see, because it's always, the immature child and the parent and, why don't you let me do what I want? Wah. But they're actually starting to connect as adults, where, she still has a lot of problems, being a teenager. But I think this was, it's an interesting moment.
And then at the end, another thing that I loved about the relationship is that she gives a book, How to Improve Your Emotional Intelligence, a Practical Guide. Which is just so great because she wants him to be a better husband, basically.
Yeah, and she keeps talking about that. Like, why don't you talk more to mom? Why don't you romance mom? And she's really interested in both of her parents' happiness.
Right.
As very different than what you would see in most YA.
Yeah. And it's kind of the best thing about her. One of the problems I had with the book was just that she doesn't do a lot in the book that is good.
No, I think she actually does some really horrible things. Mm-hmm. We talk about how she wants her parents' relationship to be better. But she is horrifically awful to her mom.
Yes.
And she's not that great to Farah. And,
mm-hmm.
Really, she's not that great to a lot of people. But I think she recognizes that and tries to make it right.
Yes. Yeah, right. There's there are a couple of chapters at the end, which is basically her
cleaning up her mess.
Right. She's like, okay, let's have this really real conversation about what's going on. So she talks to her mom.
Yeah.
She talks to Farah and they, and it's we're not hiding anything. We're not lying about anything. We're not
mm-hmm.
trying to not hurt each other's feelings. We're just being as honest as possible. And it just didn't seem like something that would actually happen in real life.
And she still wasn't completely honest.
Oh, not to her mom,
no,
certainly.
She wasn't. I mean, she still didn't tell her mom why she was so upset. She'd fallen in love with this boy, Jamie.
Jamie.
Who was not the most racist boy in school.
No.
It was a different guy.
He's the white liberal racist.
He's the white liberal racist who is just in love with her exotic looks and her exotic poetry and her friend's exotic headscarf.
Yeah, and right, man. Many warning signs.
Shabnam was not exotic enough for him.
No.
There was warning sign after warning sign after warning sign where I'm just oh God, he's gonna try to kiss her. Oh God.
So tell me, Carrie, if you tell someone about some family tragedy and their response is cool, is that
that's a red flag.
So your next move is not makeouts.
My next move is not makeouts. My next move is kick in nards.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe push downstairs.
Yeah.
No, she...
he does have all those scars, so
he
maybe...
does have all those scars from punching through a window.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a red flag, too.
It is.
Not only does he wear a fedora, not only does he punch through a window, not only does he think that genocides are cool.
Yes. Yeah, that is literally true.
He is just a bad dude, but
but charming.
But charming, and she falls for it hook, line, and sinker. He's the nephew of the pie shack owner.
Yeah.
His Aunt Marianne helps her get the job, and he delivers the pies every day, and before they open the shack, they make out. And that's really the extent of their relationship, is listening to Radiohead
mm-hmm.
and making out. Not really that deep.
No. And she, like,
but she loves him.
She loves him, but she just, at one point she's like, and then I won't have to be a virgin when I go to college. Like, I feel like she's kind of looking for a summer fling without wanting to completely admit that to herself, I feel like.
Yeah, because she keeps saying, like, when's he gonna tell me he loves me back? When's he gonna tell me that he wants me to come visit? When's he gonna... So she kept, sort of expecting and anticipating this next step that we all knew was not coming.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping she also sort of saw it that it wasn't coming, but didn't want to admit it to herself. I don't know. But yeah, he's just a chode.
I mean, something I would say is that, like, I felt like the book could have done a better job to make us think that we should be rooting for Shaenon because we don't get to see her being a good person a lot, as I said. Mm-hmm. But I also feel like the ways that she is bad, a bad friend and a bad daughter and stuff, are like totally realistic ways that a well-meaning but high school student who basically wants to get along with people is going to go down the wrong path.
I mean,
it was kind of relatable, even as I would have liked someone who was a little more sympathetic to be the protagonist.
Yeah, I think, she had problems with Farah wearing hijab.
Yeah.
And but when she sort of explained it, you're like, oh, I can see where you're coming from. Maybe you should have told your friend that much earlier. And it ended up not being so much that, her friend is doing this thing, but that she didn't talk to her about it first. That she didn't, say like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this sort of major thing. She just, came back from California wearing the headscarf, and Shaenon was like, I thought you were my best friend. Like, I thought this was, something you would confide in me. Like, I was thinking about doing this. Mm-hmm. And you're like, oh, I can see a friend being upset about something like that. Maybe use your words instead of just being like, oh, yeah, everything's okay, until I'm going to just drift away from you for a while and then laugh at this bomb joke and then show up like everything's okay because I've got boy troubles. Mm-hmm. So, of course, Farah is going to be really hurt. But at the same time, maybe Farah could have talked to her friend about this thing. And maybe she thought, well, I know Shaenon is, not religious. Maybe she's not going to understand. But I feel like if they're, as close as they both are assuming of each other, that's something that they could consider, using their words. Mm-hmm. So we haven't really talked much about Farah, and I like her as a character. So she comes back from this trip to California, and she's wearing the headscarf, but she's also doing really cool and interesting things with her headscarf. Like, she's twisting it into a mohawk, and she's, still wearing combat boots, and she's really like pushing the boundaries of what society expects of a good Muslim girl.
Right.
I think that's really fun and interesting. And she's also listening to like really, different punk music, and she's smoking pot, but also, being a good person. I mean, she's still, she's like, I'm going to college and I'm going to be a doctor and I'm going to, do what my family expects of me. But I also think this is, within the boundaries of what my religion allows. And I'm going to look as cool as I want while I do it. And I think she's so interesting. And I'm like, that's so cool that I don't know. And so, of course, Jamie, being the fedora wearing chode that he is, sees her and he's like, wow, Shaenon is, exotic, but she doesn't wear hijab. Oh, but Farah does. She's even more exotic. And she listened to exotic music. Not really exotic, just, punk. But different than Shabnam's beloved Radiohead. So instead of going to take his Aunt Marianne to see her dying friend like he tells his lovely girlfriend, he goes to the city and he goes to see the same punk show that Farah is going to be at, and he tries to kiss her. Dun, dun, dun! The drama of it all.
Yeah, and Farah doesn't tell Shabnam about it right away because she's worried that Shabnam will take Jamie's side on it or won't believe her or something.
And I think, honestly, she's right. I think Shabnam wouldn't believe her. She'd say, you just don't like him. You're jealous. You wouldn't kiss anybody anyway. I think she's sort of blinded by Jamie at that point. And I think in that instance, she might not have believed her friend. Because they were still rebuilding their friendship.
Right.
And that probably would not have gone over well as their friendship is still sort of raw.
Mm-hmm.
But I could be completely wrong. But I don't think I am.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. Like, this is a thing when they're like having their talk of complete honesty.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's in relation with that exactly, but at one point, Farah's like, okay, and if I had told you, would you have acted better than you did? And she's like, I mean, I'd like to think so, but maybe I would still have been a total jerk about it.
Yeah.
But nonetheless.
And I think she might have still been a total jerk about it. I think,
Yeah.
Farah was probably put in a really tough situation where she's like, I don't want to get between my friend and this boy, but I know that he's bad news.
I mean, Farah is really, I feel like in many families, there's kind of someone who's the fixer.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, Farah's parents, we know, fights a lot. I mean, I guess Shaenon also, as we talked about, kind of is a fixer and her own parents,
but breaker. I mean,
that's true too.
She's fixing her own problems.
But Shabnam is clearly kind of mad Farah is kind of mad at Shabnam, but nonetheless, when Shabnam is like, I need to talk to you, she really does kind of drop everything and head over. And I don't know what my point in bringing that up was.
I don't know either, but
let's talk about pie.
Let's talk about pie. So there's a lot of pie in this book.
There is pie and donuts.
The fact that, she works at this pie shop and this, this handsome young man brings her pies to sell every day. It's sort of the central thing is pie happens. Tell me more about this pie.
So, Aunt Marianne makes the pies. They bring them to the shop, and then the shop is open till the pies sell out, which could be in half an hour, it could be an hour and a half or something.
Mm-hmm.
And since the pies are so popular, Shabnam never gets to actually eat one herself. She only gets to smell them.
Yeah.
So Jamie at one point says, "Well, why don't you come over and we'll make a pie right now, and you'll eat it." It'll be blackberry pie. That's your favorite flavor, which it isn't.
It's her dad's favorite.
Yeah. But, she's like, whatever, it's fine. So this was confusing to me because I make pies, as longtime listeners to this podcast will know. So basically, if you're making a pie, you have the dough, which the dough is pre-made in this case. Then you make the filling, then you cook and then you put it all together, and then you cook the pie, which probably takes an hour. So this is probably hour and a half, 2 hour operation. In this case, they get to the house, they get the dough out of the fridge, they drink some wine, they do a little dancing. They dance to one song, so that's like 3 to 5 minutes. They start rolling the dough, then they make out. Shabnam sits on the pie dough.
Yeah, she gets her butt cheeks all up in the pie.
Then Shabnam's mom called, and then that's it.
Yeah.
So, I just was like, what was? Clearly, there wasn't enough time to make and eat a pie. Like, what was the plan here exactly?
Maybe they were making out for a long time. I mean, there could have been an hour makeout session. I don't know.
Yeah.
Then at that point, if your butt's been in the pie dough that long, that pie dough is ruined.
Right. Yeah. That was the other thing I thought. I was like, man, I hope they didn't reuse that pie dough.
I hope that the pie that she finally gets to eat was
oh my God,
had an imprint of her butt in the top of the dough.
Yeah.
That would have been fantastic. But also there's something that I found interesting about Aunt Marianne.
Yes.
Should I talk about that now?
Sure.
So we talked about how Jamie liked the exotic ladies. That was his terminology, not really mine. But he liked Shabnam because, she was a different ethnicity than him. And he liked Farah because she was even more different than he was. And I think that's, he felt like, I don't know, like he was like checking a box. Mm-hmm. And Aunt Marianne, of course, was just like, oh, this guy, I can't believe he's doing this again. But her house is just full of knickknacks from all over the world, from all the gentlemen which she bedded.
Yeah.
And had, these nice surround sound speakers from one guy from which she bedded. And, African masks and all sorts of things all over the house. And I'm like, Aunt Marianne, I think you're checking boxes too. So maybe your nephew is not too far from the tree. Mm-hmm. So she's, apologizing to Shabnam and you're saying, oh, by the way, Jamie breaks her heart and they break up.
Right. She
Spoiler alert.
She writes him a poem.
And he's like, oh, cool, thanks, bye.
Yeah.
Which is a great reaction. And the last day, instead of him delivering the pies, it's Aunt Marianne. Isn't
yes.
It? Yeah. And they have the heart to heart where he's like, Aunt Marianne says, well, he's done this before. But I'm like, Aunt Marianne, so have you.
Yeah, that's true.
Like,
and Aunt Marianne, like, she gives her $300.
Shauna's like, oh, that's my blood money.
Yeah.
Which,
Yeah. Which is like, it is kind of like, well, this is what we do in this situation.
We pay you extra. Because she's supposed to get $25 a day. And so at the end of the week to get $300, she got paid off a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
So I don't know. I found that interesting that Aunt Marianne was just like, oh yeah, I can't believe he does this. It's just how he is. And I sure wish he'd stop. I'm like, lady, you do the same thing. Mm-hmm. He learned it by watching you.
I learned it by watching you.
Yeah, you like how I pulled that out? That was good, huh?
That's good.
That's good, yeah. So some of the big lies that Shabnam told.
Oh, yeah. This is the big thing.
The big thing.
Is that she makes up this whole story because Mr. Blake, her world history teacher, like the way this is questionable, I think. Yeah. Although it's like he's like her favorite teacher, but the way that he likes to teach world events is to like find students who have a personal connection to them in some way. So like when they did the Holocaust, he said, are there any Jewish students who? Yeah, right. That's not...
Like, you don't do that.
No, that doesn't seem cool.
I don't know. So he asked if anyone had any connection to the partition.
Right. The partition of India and Pakistan.
And Shabnam does, but she doesn't know any of the stories regarding it. So, yes, her family was affected. Chote Dada, the great uncle, whose name or whose honorific translates to little grandfather. Mm-hmm. He personally was very affected, but she makes up a story. She makes up this huge whopper of a lie, which is a lovely story. That involves him, falling in love with the girl next door and having to escape, and
she's pregnant and she gets killed.
She gets killed and she jumps down a well and gets killed, and she writes him a letter. But like this huge, like, out of control story that she thinks is going to just end. But no, people keep talking about it.
Yeah.
And it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
And she tells it to Jamie also.
And she tells it to Jamie, where she could have shut her fucking mouth and just like, okay, I graduated high school. Like, now the story dies. But no, she still continues it. So that's a big lie. And it's so uncomfortable because I'm like, how hard would it have just been to say, my family was affected, but they don't feel comfortable sharing their stories.
Right.
And then they would have been like, oh, it must have been so horrible. You poor girl. You know, your family is so traumatized they can't even share their stories. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. And I thought that was going to get back to the family, which it didn't.
No, there's a lot of things I thought would get back to the family that didn't. One other thing that happened was, you know, Jamie took her to this, abandoned building on the college campus.
Mm-hmm.
And so many things could have happened there. You know, like...
Their cell phones didn't, like, lost service. Like, this is essentially, in a different book, this turns into Anna dressed in blood at this point.
And I'm sort of assuming that, you know, because it's an abandoned building, like a security guard's going to see, you know, a broken window and investigate, and that her parents are going to get called and something is going to happen. But really, in her family, she gets away with a lot because they don't know about this huge lie that she told about, you know,
right,
about their family. They don't know about Jamie. They never find out about Jamie. So these big things that are really affecting her life, the mother never knows why her daughter is so upset with her.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that, you know, Shabnam is upset with her. It's just that, you know, Shabnam is upset and takes it out on her in probably the most horrible way ever. So the mother had always wanted a large family. And for reasons... we can only suspect she only has the one. But she does have Precious Moments figurines to represent the babies that she's lost over the years. And Shabnam is an awful person.
Yeah, she says those are stupid and your babies don't look like these white figurines.
Yeah, and she, you know...
It's really...
And at that point, I wanted the parents to know everything.
Mm-hmm.
Because I wanted her to really... I wanted her to get hurt in the same way she just hurt her mom. Because that was shitty.
Yeah.
That was like a low blow where her mom is just doing the fucking best she can with what she's been given. And her mom loves her so much. Like... The moon and stars are basically brought down every day by Shabnam in her eyes. Like,
Shabnam asked her to go to the movies, and it seems like it's the highlight of her week.
Oh, absolutely. So Shabnam can be a really horrible person. And so she, you know, she breaks up with this boy, but it wasn't her choice. If he had continued to date her, I think the book would have ended very differently. I don't know if the rift between her and Farah would have, you know, mended. I don't know if the rift between her and her mom would have mended.
No, I don't think so.
So the boy dumps her because it's the end of summer and that's what you do. And then she's like, oh, I guess I got to get my shit together. And she does.
Well, I think Farah finally calls her out on like, and so then they don't completely wrap things up right then.
Yeah.
But she realizes that she's kind of gotten out of whack, and so she talks to her mom, and then she talks to Farah again.
Yeah, but I'm talking a lot of shit about Shabnam, but I think she's a really believable character. Yeah. I can see this happening, you know, with a girl who, you know, gets a little blinded by love, or a dude who gets a little blinded by love, you know. Obviously, the big lie that she told about her family was before she met Jamie. But, I mean, I don't know. There's something about Shabnam that I like. And there are lots of things about her I just want to throttle. I think Farah is really the best character because I think she's the most sure of herself. And I find that to be refreshing in YA where, you know, people are often finding themselves and she's like, fuck that. I know who I am. I'm good.
Right. I'm a Muslim. I'm a feminist. One of the things I wrote down is like there's this gourmet donut shop. Called
Ye Old Donut Shop.
Ye Old Donuts. It's run by a Serbian refugee named Dino. And other like old Serbian refugees hang out and play checkers and eventually get to like Radiohead. So one time when Shabnam and Jamie go to this place, Jamie finds out that Dino is Serbian and says, "Oh, are you a refugee?" And the guy's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Oh, that's cool."
Ugh.
Yeah. And then he says, "I hear that a lot of people died. It was really horrific." You know, and it's just like the worst.
And Dino's like, "Yeah." Mm-hmm. And Dino is like really gracious about it.
Yeah.
But that's just another mess that Shabnam has to help clean up.
Right. And Shabnam doesn't tell Farah about that at first because she wants Farah to like Jamie.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end, she does tell, like, she apologizes to Dino.
Yeah.
And Dino's like, I was just kind of glad that he even knew that happened because most people here don't.
Yeah.
They don't know and they don't care. And so Shabnam tells Farah about it. And Farah's like, you know, what an asshole, basically. Mm-hmm. And then she says, you should call Jamie and tell him that thanks to him, Dino has renamed the place to Genocide Donuts. She says, and there could be a whole chain with like all these cultures that have been destroyed thanks to colonialism. And it would be, don't feel too bad, citizens of America. The people may have died, but their desserts live on. Which I feel like...
Oh, man. Jamie would keep that place in business.
Yeah. I feel like there is kind of that subtext to some of these kind of restaurants that are, well, whatever. I went to a gourmet donut place with Carrie for breakfast.
You sure did. And it was not a genocide donut.
No, it wasn't. It was a blueberry, like, jelly donut with lemon meringue on topping, which lemon and blueberry, and oh man, so good. So good.
It was a good combination, y'all.
So delicious. Anyway, I've gotten off track, but yeah. So Farah's like that is like well observed and funny, and you know.
Yeah, I think I'd like a whole book of Farah just like going to college and kicking ass.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, like she knows herself. She's not apologetic for who she is. She's a badass feminist who, you know, I don't know. I know she said something about how it's like, it's totally okay to kick people in the balls.
Yes, right. According to the Quran, it's you're only allowed to touch your husband's balls and the balls of your baby child. Yeah. Or you're allowed to kick the balls of people who have broken your friends' hearts. Yes. That's in the scripture.
It's in there. So yeah, I like her. And I have a lot of problems with this book, you know, the fact that the whole making out with the most racist boy, nothing really happened from there. You know, she told Farah and Farah's like, that's a thing. That's a thing you did. That sucks. But nothing really happens, you know, with that. I was like, oh man, there's going to be some drama about making out with the most racist boy in school. And I just keep thinking, you know what? This was a very Tony private school in New Jersey. Like, there's no way he's the most racist. I mean, he's pretty fucking racist. But, you know, there's some character that we haven't met that's got to be the most. So, she could have done worse, I guess. At least he had a nice stomach.
She got some free champagne.
Yeah. But most of the book takes place after high school with a few flashbacks to her being shitty in high school.
Yeah.
And how she met Farah. And, the fact that I think the first thing she ever said to Farah was, my arms are hairy too.
Yes.
And I think that's so delightfully awkward that I would totally do that.
Yeah.
So, I didn't hate this book. I had some problems with it. There are things I loved. Jamie is a turd.
Yeah.
That's my review. Jamie is an absolute turd.
Yeah, I agree. I had some problems with it as well, but I think, I liked it.
I think the second that they mentioned that he was wearing a fedora, I knew he was going to be bad news.
Well.
And then the second.
The fact that the first thing that she noticed about him was that he had a scar on his throat.
Yeah. And how do you get a scar on your throat from punching a window?
No, I mean, he has a lot of scars. He said that he had a girlfriend in college who connected all his scars with a pen.
Oh yeah,
and took a picture or something.
Sort of art thing.
So he's got a lot of scars.
He's got a lot of girlfriends.
Yeah, and I kind of wondered if he was going to be revealed to be a cutter or something, which didn't happen.
No, he doesn't really have any emotions at all. Just kind of chode. So yeah, that's that thing we call a heart.
It is.
I enjoy it. If you want, to read a book where there's a cool dad who likes poetry, I recommend it wholeheartedly. If you don't like cool dads and you don't like cool dads who like poetry, read something else.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd buy that. Just go out and have a nice donut. So the next book that we're going to read, Anne of Green Gables, right?
That's what we're going to read. Yeah, I'm really excited. I haven't read that book in forever. I know that,
I have never read it.
Anne with an E is out on maybe Netflix. I think it's Netflix. We're going to say Netflix. One of them are things. And people have had, conflicting opinions about that. But we're going to read the source material. And I'm very excited because it has been many, many years since I've read Anne of Green Gables.
Yeah, and the author is L.M. Montgomery.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, another thing we should say is that the contest finished.
Yay!
We've been talking about it for so many months, but it's actually over, and I don't know, it's actually probably out already, but either I've already or am about to put out a little special episode where we play all of the entries and we pick our winners.
So if you haven't listened to it already, give it a listen.
And all the songs I enjoyed all of the lyrics, and it was fun putting them to music. And thanks to the 4 people who entered. We have some listener mail.
Okay.
Sarah Redacted asks, did you guys think Anna Dressed in Blood was kind of the same as the show Supernatural theme-wise? So you have never actually seen Supernatural.
I haven't. It's sort of one of those shows that I think I'm supposed to have seen, but haven't. But we discussed it a little bit yesterday and talked about some of the fairly common tropes that...
Yeah. So Supernatural is, when I only watched, I think like 2/3 of the first season. And I just stopped, not because I didn't like it, but just because there's a lot going on.
There's a lot of TV in the world.
Yeah. But it reminded me kind of in structure of the X-Files, just in terms of these 2 guys who travel from town to town. In Supernatural, they're investigating supernatural beasts and events and things. And often they're kind of related to urban legends or whatever. They're 2 brothers, and in the first episode, I think, it's been a while since I watched it, but basically the backstory is that their mother was killed by some kind of demon when they were a kid, and their father kind of trained them to be demon/ghost hunters,
mm-hmm.
and then disappeared. And the elder brothers, the younger brother, I forget.
One of the
brothers comes and gets the other brother out of college to like take up when the father disappears, to like find the father and also kind of take over the job of killing all these evil creatures. And so there's definitely some things in common with Anna. In Anna, it's the father who was killed, not the mother. Mm-hmm. But the idea of ultimately of like tracking down these ghosts to like get experience and evidence and eventually find and kill the big bad guy. That's certainly the same. And then also another thing is that there's a character in Supernatural. This is in later seasons that I didn't get to, but whose name is Cass, which there's also a Cass and Anna dressed in blood. So those similarities are enough to make me think that the reference is intentional. Although obviously also a lot of these things are just tropes that appear in fiction.
I mean, I don't know how many books there are written where, the boy has to avenge his father's death in some way.
Yeah, I mean, that's Hamlet.
That's Hamlet. And I was thinking, that's the Lion King. And the Lion King is Hamlet. Oh, Carrie, you're so dumb. Sometimes you are so dumb.
Well, I've never seen the Lion King either, so.
Anyway. But yeah, it sounds like there's probably, it sounds like Kendra Blake may have seen an episode or 20 of Supernatural, but wrote her own book.
Yeah, and I think as Anna Dressed in Blood goes along, because Supernatural and X-Files and shows like that are super episodic. There's a running storyline, but mostly you're just going week to week, monster of the week kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And the bulk of Anna is set in one town, and it's like that story is kind of about the main character settling down in a way and finally making some local connections and stuff in a way that Supernatural and X-Files, that doesn't really happen.
Yeah.
So I think that connection is there, but I think there are also important differences.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
All right. Cripes. Oh, speaking of Anna Dressed in Blood.
Yeah.
You may recall that in the last episode, Carrie improvised a little song.
I did.
So I finished writing that song.
Oh, dear.
Carrie hasn't heard it. And we're in person. We're sitting across the table from each other. So I get to see her expression, which is always enjoyable. So I'm going to play the song. You're 17 forever. You're never going to grow up. The world is really sad for you. Murder some hobos in your basement, your basement, your basement. Your ma, she killed and cursed you on your way to the dance. That's why you wear a bloody dress. You never had a chance. That's why you're 17 forever. You're never gonna grow up. The world is really sad for you. So go tear a robot. No, wait. So tear a football jock in half, in half, in half. You've lived alone for ages, not counting your victims' ghosts. But that ghost hunter is pretty cute. And by you, he seems engrossed. But you're 17 forever. You're never gonna grow up. The world is really sad for you. So get your ghost-loving freak on, freak on, freak on. It's really quite a tragic story. Your curse will never cease. And you're longing for his athame. You just want that sweet release. And you're 17 forever. You're never gonna grow up. The world is really sad for you. So make your ghost house disappear, disappear, disappear.
I think it's a hit.
Yes.
I think the songwriting duo of Carrie and Jake killed it.
Yeah, we're the next Lennon and McCartney.
Something like that.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess that this is the end of our live in-person episode.
Until next time.
Yes. I will definitely make the trip down again.
And I hear I'll be up north
yes.
next year when Wrinkle in Time comes out.
Mm-hmm.
So anyone who lives in or around the Jacob Haller vicinity,
Providence, Rhode Island.
Yeah, you can come, and we'll all make it a big love YA like crazy movie fest.
Yeah. So thanks for your hospitality, Carrie. It's been great visiting.
I love it when you come visit.
I love it too, and I love you like crazy.
I love you like crazy. We're also giant cheese balls.
We are giant cheese balls. Ah.
LoveYALikeCrazy.com